Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about this week's, the parsha that we just finished, which was Parsha Shemos, right? And it's a big one, okay? This is the one where Moshe comes on the scene and he tries to help the Jewish people. And so I just want to start with a story that my daughter told me. So she's very cute. So she was saying that she was, in a real rush, of course, okay? And she's trying to get out of the house and she had to give a class and she warmed up her car. Some people have these like clickers. She's like they had to rent a car, something happened to their car, so this like new car, they're so excited and they click, I don't know what it is, lock and something else, right? And then it warms the car before you get into it. So she was like so excited, so she warms up the car and then she takes all her stuff, she's carrying a bunch of bags and everything, and she gets to the car and she can't open the door. Okay, and she realizes I can't find my key. All right. So she has locked, okay, the door of the car. The car is running and she can't find the key. So she starts going through all her stuff and she's getting all flustered. And then she stops and she says, Hashem, you're trying to talk to me. Hashem, you're trying to tell me something. What are you trying to tell me? So she goes into the house. She's looking everywhere. She can't find it. And finally, she looks down at the table and she realizes she forgot all her notes, all the notes that she would have needed to be able to give the class. And right next to the notes is the key. So sometimes Hashem is talking to you even in your frustrations. Do you know what I mean? And somebody who's trying to tell you, like, woohoo, you forgot something. Okay, so I'm going to lock this door so you can't, leave without picking up your notes. So, I thought it was such a sweet story. If you look in the story of Shemos, there's some interesting things here. So, first of all, how long did Moshe live? Does anybody know?
Was it 120?
Yes. Oh, okay. 120. Thumbs up. Okay, really good. 120. That's why we always bless each other. Oh, you should live to be 120. Okay, in good health with a sound mind. Okay. That's how we want to live to 120. So Moshe lived to be 120. We know it's very interesting, though, that most of his life he did not spend with the Jewish people. It's really interesting. He really, really didn't. It's almost, he didn't come to the Jewish people until he was in his 80s. So let's go through his like childhood. It's an interesting story, right? So Moshe is born right when Paro has this decree that he wants to kill all of the Jewish baby boys. And the reason why he wanted to kill the Jewish baby boys is they had very strong astrologers. In those days, astrology was real. It's not like when you open up a magazine and at the back it says, everyone will meet their special person this month. Okay, it's not that. It was like the real deal. So they had an interesting idea. They said that there will be a Jewish baby born. He will save the Jewish people. He will take them out of Egypt, out of slavery, and his demise will be with water. Pretty close. So they figured the thing that we need to do if his demise is with water, we'll just, drown every single Jewish baby, like the poor Jewish people, what we've put up with. Hashem, have like mercy on us and send all the hostages home right away without giving us these horrible criminals and bring Mashiach now. So they started to throw these Jewish babies away. In the end, Moshe's parents like were actually thinking like, what are we doing this for? Like, what do we need to have any boys anymore? Let's just stop having children. Everyone divorced their wives. Like, let's just stop this whole story. And Moshe's sister Miriam said, no, you're making a big mistake because now you're going to kill all the Jewish women as well. Like, you're going to kill off the whole nation. You have to have faith that Geula is coming, right? We know that we were going to be put into slavery, and we also know we were going to be taken out. So they remarry, they give birth to Moshe. And if you think about the story is totally miraculous, right? Because where does Moshe end up? He's, put into this basket into the river, right? Miriam is watching from afar because it looks like, oh my gosh, like what's the end of this baby going to be? And then who's there? The princess of Egypt. And what does she decide? To adopt Moshe. Where does Moshe end up being raised? Right under Paro's nose. Like when you stop and you think about it, this is also God's message to us because they say the prototype of redemption is what happened in Egypt. So what is that? Crazy. Mashiach will be from some kind of crazy reality. It's not going to be like what we think is obvious. It's going to be very not obvious, okay? How he suddenly appears and who he is. It's not going to be obvious. It's going to be from far left, okay? So now Moshe appears on the scene. He grows up in the palace of Pharaoh.
Gail, can I just ask, when Moshe was found by the princess, had he already had a Brit Milah?
Yes. In fact, Moshe she knew he was a Jew. So what did she do? She knew for sure. And she had, it says chamol, like she had incredible pity. Like she was just overcome with incredible pity. And it's interesting, it says that she killed a lot of the slaves around her, with a lot of her chamber women, you know what I mean? Just to make sure that nobody told, you know what I mean? Like that it was like held as a secret. So it's just an interesting story. He ends up growing up in the palace, and then one day it says Vayigdal Moshe. So Vayigdal means like he grew up. So it's not grew up as in Gadol, he became big. Gadol usually means a person who is very expansive. Like they're beyond, they think beyond themselves. Like when we talk about Hashem, we call Hashem Gadol. So we don't mean he's Gadol because, he can beat you up. Like, when you're little and you go, my daddy's bigger than your daddy, or my brother, he can beat you up. He's bigger than you. We do that kind of thing. Gadol here we mean in character. Okay? Vayigdol, he grew up. And one of the greatest character traits is when you realize the world doesn't just revolve around you. Okay? When you can go out and see someone else's suffering and want to actually make a difference. You stand up for someone else. All right? So he stands up. He sees a Jewish person being beaten by an Egyptian taskmaster, and he actually steps in and he kills the taskmaster. Okay, and then he hides him in the sand. But unfortunately, right, it gets out there, right? It gets out there. The next day, there's two Jews fighting, Dasan and Aviram, and one of those Jews was the one that Moshe saved from the taskmaster. And he turns around to Moshe and he says, this is all none of your business. What are you going to do? Kill me like you killed the Egyptian? And when that happened, hold on, Riva's coming, so I'm so happy. So when that happened, then Moshe realized, what does he have to do?
Get away.
He has to run, right? Because he was going to be killed, and they actually did try to kill him. He was almost executed, but the Torah tells you, like, it was a big miracle. Hi, Riva, so nice to see you. So happy you came. So that he runs away. So now he runs away, and for 80 years, he's out of the scene. Could you imagine? Like when you stop and you think about it, like he lived 120 years, 80 of them he is not spending with the Jewish people. And yet he becomes the leader of the Jewish people who redeems the Jewish people. So the Torah asks, like, why? Why did he have to be away for 80 years? So the first answer is very interesting. There's a sentence in the Talmud that says, you can never be the prophet in your own city. What does that mean? Unfortunately, if you grow up in the same city often that you want to be the rabbi in that city, never works out. Because people say, oh, I remember when he was young, he was so wild. And I remember, they don't necessarily have the respect for you. So you'll see, like when the Bayit had to look for a rabbi, or when most people are looking for rabbis, they usually take someone from out of town. So my daughter was telling me a crazy story that there was her brother-in-law was a principal in a small town. I'm making it up because whatever it should be. So her brother-in-law was a principal in a small town in Buffalo. Okay, we're making it up. And he had a good friend in Chicago, in a small town, in a small part of Chicago, all right? And now the one who was living in Chicago, he was a teacher. He was doing so much incredible work for the school, and the school had an opening for a principal, but they wouldn't take him. Who did they take? The brother-in-law
Well,
from Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Okay. And Buffalo had an opening for a principal. Okay. He was doing incredible work in the school. They wouldn't take him. He had to go to Chicago. Okay. It's like crazy. It's crazy. So, in one way, Hashem made it that Moshe, wasn't in the politics and in this and in that. And I sometimes think like this protocol that Mashiach may also be someone who hasn't been in the scene, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? So that nobody can say, oh, this one, oh, he's this rabbi, that rabbi. You know what I mean? Somewhere from out there. And another reason why is because the Mashiach is not only coming for us, he's coming for the entire world. All right. This is to change the world order. This is to bring peace, right? And loving kindness and an understanding of God to the entire world. So, in some ways, whoever this Mashiach is, he's going to have to understand the Jew who isn't so religious because he wants to bring him home, and the non-Jew who isn't so religious. Do you know what I'm saying? This is someone who's going to have to interface with all these different people, right? If you're going to have to influence the world, then you have to have some kind of worldly experience. So this was another reason why he wasn't. Also, there was like a secret code that was passed down from Yaakov Avinu. Okay, so Yaakov, before he dies, he blesses the brothers, and he knew that they all knew from Abraham that Hashem had promised and said, the Jewish people will go down, you will go down as a family into Egypt, into servitude, and there you will grow to be a nation. Like they came in at 70 people, right? They left in the millions. All right. So during that time, you would have to grow into this national group. And one thing that got the Jewish people out of Egypt is what was that they stay united. Okay. They stayed united, right? The Egyptians went after them and they stayed united, which is a big piece of the puzzle here. Like it says, they kept their names, which meant they kept who they are as people and understood what their mission was. They kept their clothes, meaning they kept a Jewish pride and a Jewish dignity, and they kept their language, meaning they didn't, like it's hard today, like when you're listening to anybody speak today, even the most, like the president or vice president or anybody, everybody really speaks lowly. Do you know what I mean? Like they swear. Like it wasn't like, do you remember once upon a time, like people who held up office, so to speak, didn't speak like everybody speaks on, in the streets. You know what I mean? Like I feel bad sometimes. Like you just want to listen to the news and the kinds of words that people are throwing around. You're like, it's beneath your dignity. Does anybody understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like beneath their dignity. And you don't have to show me that you like, you're like like how, young teenagers, like kids who are not use these words, like you're a little older, a little wiser. Like you could find a nicer word, a cleaner word. You know what I mean? You don't have to use these words. And we're living in a world that's like, that's the language. It's becoming like that's just the way we speak. But the Jews, when they were in Mitzrayim, they kept the dignity of their language. They didn't just, speak in a way that wasn't so amazing. Okay, so these are some of the things that we learn, and this is kind of the messages that Hashem is sending out. So one of, I think, the most important messages that Hashem sent to us as the Jewish people is that when we were taken out of slavery, we're going to be taken out. God gave us a mitzvah. And you know what mitzvah that was? He gave us an understanding of how you should treat a slave. Now, if you think about this, this is really a deep idea because very often when people are abused or they go through circumstances that are really like, people were always bullying them, like you see what goes on, right? Like people get very bullied and then what do? They end up bullying other people. Do you know what I'm saying? People who were, abused and abusing other people. So Hashem set the Jewish people up and he said, listen very carefully. It's true, right? That you were abused and you were like treated as horrible slaves. But if you're in that position, take the high road and know that you need to treat people with dignity, no matter if they are economically, much lower than you, or they have to work for you, or whatever the case may be. Every person has to be treated with dignity, and we don't take out frustration or pain that we felt, like, sometimes like people had a mean boss and now they get to be boss. So you have a choice. What are you going to choose? You can choose, okay, I'm going to remember how bad it felt when I was insulted, or when, you didn't get this on time and where were you? And I really felt insulted. Now I'm going to change that atmosphere, right, in the office. Or now I can be the big boss and now I can like let everybody have it. Do you see what's going on? So you see the greatness of Torah, because the Torah tells you if you get into a situation, right, learn from it. What should you learn from it? What should you learn from these kinds of situations?
You learn what you shouldn't do.
Right.
You learn. You learn.
Excellent.
You can learn from
Excellent.
people
Oh
that
boy, Rhonda, that was perfect. That was perfect. That's why the Torah tells you, it's very interesting. Like, even when you have like Ezahu Chacham, who is a wise person? Hamilamed Mikol Adam, a person who can learn from everyone. And for some people, Rhonda's right. You're going to learn what not to do. From some people, you're going to learn, whoa, these are amazing. What an incredible role model. I'm going to learn what to do. But from some people, I am going to learn this is not what I am going to do. Okay. I will not treat people like that. So, so I really thought that was so beautiful. Like when the Jewish people come out, like already Hashem is trying to teach you, you're going to be a light onto the nations. Okay. You aren't going to do that barbaric treatment to someone else. And it's hard, because I think if you look at the Jewish people, we've been abused and persecuted and so many things. And we still, oh, sorry. And we still always take the high road. Do you know what I'm saying? Like even now, it's so hard. Like you watch, like how careful they are, the way they fight in Gaza, and where like really, this war could have been over much earlier. They could have just bombed the whole, you know what I mean? Like it's really hard. I'm finding it's hard. Like I'm really like looking at the whole picture and saying, Hashem, I know you're talking to us. Like, what is it? We got to keep plugging. We can't give up. And you see that that's the prototype of Gullus, right? Because if Amram and Yocheved, like if you stop and you think about it, like imagine if Amram and Yocheved would have stayed divorced, then Moshe would have never been born. Like if they had not listened to Miriam, and look at how bizarre, like, look at how bizarre the salvation came. Like imagine being Paro. Do you know that Moshe grew up on Paro's lap? Okay. Moshe was a prince in Egypt. Like here you think you're going to outsmart God, and God goes, just watch. You're like, what? Okay, so that's with all of us, I have no idea what's coming. Like, do you guys have any idea? I feel like we're totally watching this crazy movie. Does anyone feel that way? Like you're just watching like this crazy movie that only like Hashem is writing a script. Every day the page changes and you're like, huh? Do you know what I mean? And like things flying all over. This is our lives. This is the Jewish people. This is what it is. Okay. All right. So let's see. Okay. So now it's very interesting. Now, when it comes to talking about Moshe getting, like Moshe's parents and the parents giving birth to Moshe, if you look inside the Chumash, very interesting, they don't even mention their names. Like usually when you're talking about a biography of someone, like any of the biographies that you read, one of the first parts of the biography is always what?
Who the parents were.
Yes, 100%. Who the parents were, where they came from, what their names are. Here it says, Ish Levi, a man from Levi, he took a bat Levi, took a daughter of Levi, and they had a baby, and the baby was incredible, and it ends up being Moshe. It's just like an interesting, so the Torah asks you, why was it like such a hidden story? So a few things. What was Moshe's most developed character trait? Like everybody knows Moshe for this incredible character trait. Does anybody know what that character trait is?
Leadership.
What? Leadership. But even before leadership, it's like the quality of the person that he was, but that was a very good guess. Anybody know?
Passionate.
Passionate, almost.
Compassionate.
Yeah, compassionate. That was good. Almost. Most important was humility.
Oh, yes.
Right? He was known as the Anav Mikol Adam. He was a very humble person. Where did he get it from? He got it from his parents. His parents were the big leaders, but they kept a very low profile. Totally, like, when you're looking now with this whole Donald Trump thing, it's like totally the opposite. Do you know what I mean? It's like everything on steroids, a million balls and parties and like, you know what I mean? And how is humility tied to leadership? How do you put humility and leadership? Because you're saying all these beautiful things about him and you're 100% right. Leadership, compassion, how does it all come from humility?
You think of everybody else and not yourself.
Okay, very good. You think about everyone else and not yourself. Any other ideas? It was a good one. Any other one?
You don't have an ego problem.
Yes, and if you don't have an ego problem, then what?
You think of others.
Yes, you think of us, you could lead much differently. That was like I was listening to that, like it was a little scary. They kept saying, well, if you're nice to Donald Trump, then he's nice to you. You know what I mean? Like if you like him, he likes you. And that's the same with most of these politicians. Like I'm not picking just on him. I'm saying like everyone is like that, right? When you have humility here, this is a very different thing. The humility is in front of God. In other words, God, I do what you tell me because why? I'm humble enough to know what?
You're in charge.
You're in charge and you know
best.
Exactly. Okay, and that's not easy. And you see it right at the beginning. It's not so easy for Moshe. Like Hashem picks Moshe, and what does he say?
Why picking me?
Right. Beautiful. Why are you picking me? Pick somebody else. Like I don't speak that well. I, have some kind of speech impediment. And think about this. Like this is tough when you really think about it. His older brother Aaron, right? Remember we said for 80 years Moshe is not with the Jewish people. Who was?
Aaron.
Yes. So he was the older brother. Like these are tricky situations. And you ask yourself, like, why did Hashem do that? Why would Hashem put Aaron in that position, like the younger brothers coming, and guess what? God said, I'm the one who's going to pick. And he feels bad about it. Like Moshe's very compassionate. He says to Hashem, like, what about my brother? What about my brother? Like he was the leader the whole time. And you know what Hashem says to him? Don't worry about it. He is a very special person. He's on a special level. He's going to be happy that you became the leader. And the truth was, they both led, right? That's what the Torah tells you, that at the end, they both led. But it's important. These things are important. Do you know why? Because life is like that. Life looks sometimes like it's not fair. Why did they get the bigger piece of cake? You know what I mean? When you're little, like you're always looking at, they got the bigger piece of cake. Or, you go to the restaurant. How come mommy so-and-so got more French fries than me? You know what I mean? But what's the reality of life?
Life's not fair.
It's not fair the way we think is fair, 100%. And somehow God knows best. I see, I'm sure we all see it with your own, with your children. Some are really successful and some are
Not so successful.
not so successful.
Gail,
Right?
sorry, if Moshe was in the palace under Pharaoh for all that time, he didn't have any connection with his family, did he? He didn't dare have
You know
any.
what? The connection he had was only until she finished nursing him. So I don't know how old that was. Could be 4. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? And the mother really inundated him. This is what the Torah tells you, like those foundation, not just the Torah, you should know psychologically almost like from 0 to I think 8, right? Is it to 8? I think it's to 8. Some people say to 4, right? That you really develop your personality and who you are and your like that's why, like a lot of us carry sometimes trauma from our childhood, even in, forever. It's not a simple story, trauma from your childhood. It really, really, really isn't, right? And it sometimes shows up in the body, it shows up in the subconscious. Like you got to work it. It's very hard. So yes, you are right, for
Yeah,
sure. Because he probably would have endangered his family for sure. So as far as I know, you never see anywhere in the Torah where it tells you like he still kept up some kind of a relationship. I agree with you.
so
So
did they get in touch with him to say, you're my brother? I mean, he went and he became a shepherd with Yitro, wasn't he?
yes, he did. It's interesting that they probably talked about it, told him, and then he comes up and he sees Aaron. As far as I can understand, you're right. He had to run. He was a fugitive. You know what I mean? He was a real fugitive. So, but okay, so you could see, so his parents had that same kind of humility as he did. Like they were low key. They did what they, what Hashem was telling them. They were low key. They were the leaders, but they were very low key. Another reason why this is interesting too, which is very interesting, 2 other reasons. The other reason why is Moshe ended up becoming in the world's picture. We're talking about all the religions, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Moshe is one of the most popular religious figures. Holy Moses, right? He is one of the most popular religious figures. The Torah B'dafka wanted to say that his parents were a man and a woman. What did they not want world history to say about Moshe?
That he came from a same-sex family.
Okay, maybe that's what you would think today, but really what it was, this idea of the immaculate conception, this idea that, he was like, God brought him, like, we really believe as people, like as the Jewish people, our philosophy is nobody is born a saint. Okay, there's no such thing as, do you know what I mean? Like, God had a baby with someone. We don't believe any of that kind of stuff. It comes man and women, and that you're born very human. Okay, you're born human, right? Like we're all, you become a saint. You aren't a saint. You have to work to become saintly. You have to work to become a good person. You have to work to be holy, because every one of us is born body and
Soul.
right? Good girls. You guys are amazing. Okay, so every one of us is born body and soul, right? So everyone here is struggling. We're all a work in progress, and all from a different part of it's like we're all born on the ladder and we all have to keep climbing it, but some people are born on step 10, some people are born on step 1, and some people on step 10 never move up, or they move down, and some people born on step 1 move up to step 12. You know what I'm trying to say? Right? It's all going to be your effort, your circumstance, and the help of Hashem. Okay? So the Torah wants to show you, you can build you. Sometimes people feel like, oh, I can only, marry someone with money or a family that's really schmancy pantsy, whatever it is, right? So the Torah is telling you that's not going to make or break you. You're going to have to be, you know what I mean? You'll have to take the tool sets that your parents give you. And some people will be blessed, with these like parents who have this great attitude and blah, blah, blah. And some people will not. Right? And that means you're not starting on that same rung on the ladder necessarily. But every foot forward that you put is sometimes worth 10 times what the other person's. You know what I'm saying? Like this is a very, I really feel like we all have to appreciate so much how personally, how personal our journey is and how important it is, and how God is the only one who really knows that inner struggle. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of people are wearing like this happy face on the outside, but maybe inside it's a very broken, inside, and they had to work really hard to, sew parts up or put a band-aid on, or, like, and I'm like, we have to appreciate all these realities. Like you could see even Moshe's life, that's not an easy life to be outside of your community and your family for 80 years living in Midian. You know what I mean? Like as a shepherd for some other guy. It's not such a simple reality. And then everything turns again, right? The same thing with Yosef. These characters, there is something incredibly miraculous about them. Like, if you take Yosef and you throw someone into, like, think about it, at 17, you go down to Egypt, thrown into prison, like all these, your brothers sell you this, that, and now you got to lift yourself out of that, right?
Strength.
Yeah. And that strength is an inner character's soul. And you know what I mean? He was blessed that he kept remembering his father. Like he just didn't give up hope. He realized, he even said, like, if I had such a nut life, there must be a reason for this. This is so beyond, right? There must be a reason. So I want to tell you a beautiful story. Does anyone know who Karen Sermon is? She's a real sweetie. So Karen Sermon, she's in Israel. She sent me just this little note. I just want to, it was a beautiful note. So she was telling me about her daughter's friend's husband. Okay, so daughter's friend's husband. It's not easy, everything that's going on in Israel. And they're a young family. The husband, it's a young family. They have 2 kids, and the wife is expecting a 3rd baby. And this husband must have volunteered to be a kidney donor. All right. So they take, your blood type and all these kinds of things. And he hasn't heard anything. And then suddenly he got a phone call, that we found a match for you. Like, would you like to come? And, it's not easy times right now. And he said, yes. And his wife said, go, it's so important. And it was such a nice story. So he ended up donating his kidney, and it was to a girl who was 30, who was living in Bnei Brak, and her whole life was on hold. Like for the last 6 years, she had very bad kidney disease. And she always had to go for dialysis, and she couldn't even work, and she couldn't date anybody. She couldn't, like, it was so hard. And he gave her the kidney. And then the mother called and was so nice. The mother called up and she said, I just want to thank you so much, because my daughter, for the first time in 6 years, was able to say the blessing Asher Yatzar. Like, you know what I mean? Like she was finally able to live an independent life off of dialysis. And that's really something. Like, so I was just like, I thought it was so beautiful. So this is like the Jewish people, like, get up, like they see something is off, and there's such amazing, incredible, chesed that people will do. And I'm just like, I just thought it was so beautiful. Okay.
Well, Gail,
Yes. Sorry?
You also donated a kidney.
Yeah, I gave a kidney, and now like Dion Liebenthal just gave a kidney. I've seen, and this other girl I was training, Dina Mamon.
Hello.
Yeah, I just want you to know we are the biggest kidney donors in the world, are the Jewish people. Okay, we give our kidneys, like so there's a lot of like there's Jewish organizations to be able to donate kidneys to, and like Baruch Hashem, it's really something. It's really something who we are. So it's really, just a beautiful idea. Okay, so now, okay, so where did I want to tell you? Okay, so this is interesting, very interesting story, because you have to ask yourself, could you do it? So here comes Moshe. He runs away. Why did he run away? Because he did something nice. There's an expression. Has anyone ever heard this? No good deed goes unpunished. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, what does that expression mean? Does anybody, like, who wants to volunteer to say, what does the expression no good deed goes unpunished mean?
I don't know. Doesn't make
Don't know? Okay, good try. Okay. So usually it means like, here you are, you tried to do something good for someone, like, okay, I'll take your child to with the carpool. Like, I'll come up, I'll pick them up. Of course, the day you say yes is the day there's the biggest snowstorm and your car swizzles and you get into an accident and really would have stayed home. But okay. So no good deed goes unpunished. So if you look at what happened with Moshe, like it's really an interesting story, right? Because he went to help that Jew. Like this Jew is getting beaten by this Egyptian, and he goes out of his way to help that Jew. And then that Jew says, I'm gonna, the next day when the Jew is fighting with another Jew, he turns to Moshe and he goes, you just try, doing anything and breaking this fight up, and I will inform on you. And I think he did. He informed on Moshe. So no good deed goes unpunished. So now Moshe runs away. Now listen up. So he's they say like, everyone, where was the big hangout in every single town in ancient times? The well, okay? Everybody's got to hang out by the well, all right? You need a drink, everyone's hanging out by the well. It's like the modern day water cooler, like in the office, people used to always schmooze by the water cooler. So here you're schmoozing at the well. What happens? He sees like Yisro's daughters, right? And one of which is going to be his future wife, Zipporah. They're getting picked on. All right. And all these men are like chasing them. They're not letting them get to the well. It's a whole big deal. Why? So what was going on? Their father and the girls both chose to convert. Now, Yisro was the Kohen of Midian. It's like he was saying the Pope, okay? So you imagine the Pope would go online. I have discovered the truth, okay? I am converting to Judaism. Could you imagine, okay, what would happen? And on top of that, the girls said, we want to convert to. And the father said to them, if you convert, who are you going to marry? Okay. The Jews are mostly enslaved. There ain't no Jewish guy around here. You could be a spinster for the rest of your life. And they were like, no problem. We're willing to do it. Okay. It's like crazy how devoted they were. So now he comes to this well and he doesn't know these girls for beans. Okay. They're total strangers, right? And they're getting picked on. And now he could have said, okay, if I bud into this, what could happen to me? The same thing that happened to me in Egypt. No good deed goes unpunished. But instead it says, Vayakom Moshe. Moshe got up and did what was right. Now, who remembers this? It was just recent. This wasn't a long time ago. The story with Daniel Penny. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Do you remember with the Marine? Do you know this guy was I think he was 26, a 26-year-old Marine on the subway. Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. It was a 26-year-old Marine. It just happened very, very recently. It was crazy. So the New York subways have become extremely dangerous, right? Like they've actually called the National Guard to be in the New York subways. Like my sister-in-law takes the subway in New York. She said everybody glues themselves up against the wall because people have been pushed into the subway. They've been robbed. They've been beaten. Like it's really, really bad, right? And recently there was a horrific thing by an illegal immigrant, like he burned someone, like it was disgusting. It was
I remember
it was
that.
horrible. Like Michigan, okay, these are like they're not well people. They're really not well. The psychopaths, never. Okay, so this guy got on, an African American homeless man who was arrested numerous times for violence and drug abuse and all kinds of things, right? But in New York, what do they have? If you don't have money for bail, then we release you back into the streets. So you can be arrested a million times, but then you're just released. So
Trump's day, things are going to change.
I know, amen. So he was released. He was on the subway. He was full of drugs, okay? And he's a very violent guy. And he starts screaming, I'm going to murder someone on this. And he's going up to people, and people were really, really scared, right? And they're starting to think this guy is literally going to murder them. So this young Marine got up and he like tackled him with some other people. And when he tackled him, he held him down. The problem is when you're full of drugs, your heart rate and everything is very different. And he passed away. Okay, the police came, he called the police, there were lots of witnesses. He went down to the station and he didn't think to bring a lawyer because in his mind, he was the hero. Do you know what I mean? Like people were so grateful, right? And what happened? He ended up arrested, right? They arrested him. They tried him. It was like, I mean, I was crying. I was thinking, how is this going to be? Like no one now will stand up for anybody. Do you know what I mean? Like this is what you see. No good deed goes unpunished on steroids. Anyway, at the end, Baruch Hashem, he wasn't convicted. They had an interview with him and they asked him, would you do it again? Now that you know what happened, would you be able to do it again? And he said, yes, as a Marine, I'm trained to save people's lives at all cost. I was so taken. And he's only 26. His whole life could have been ruined. And really, like, this is a huge piece of publicity. Like his name was smeared. You know what I mean? You know how so it was just really, I mean, it was exonerated at the end, but his whole life changed. But this, what I'm saying, like, this is leadership. Leadership is you're able to go beyond. You know what I mean? You'll put yourself in harm's way so that you could save other people. So this is what Moshe did. He said, you know what? Like you have to realize when he ran to Midian, he was really a convicted felon. And if anybody wanted, they could have said, who are you? Do you know what I mean? And then tell on, you know what I mean? Like bring this news back to Mitzrayim. But he was willing to stand up for total strangers. And this is incredible, incredible, incredible leadership qualities, right? These are incredible leadership qualities. So in the end, he marries Tzipporah. He marries one of these girls. And if you take a look, often you'll see in the Chumash, like when somebody's getting married, it's like a whole big long story. Yaakov, he had to work for 14 years, you know what I mean? For 14 years to get his wife, you know what I mean? But Tzipporah and Moshe, it's like almost instant because both of them were people who showed so much incredible self-sacrifice that they merited to marry each other, which was like such, I thought, like a beautiful idea. Okay, so now I just want to tell you another important part. Okay. So if you take a look, which is very like a little bit sad, this part, they actually tell you that the Nazis, when they came to destroy the Jewish people, they took the prototype of how to do it from King Paro. Could you imagine? So what were the things that King Paro did to the Jewish people? It says that he made them work. They call it perach, like back-breaking labor. So back-breaking labor here wasn't just physically back-breaking, it was destroying your spirit inside. So if you look at the Nazis, they would make the Jewish people, you'd wake up in a concentration camp, you hardly had anything to eat, and the labor would be crazy. They would take big, heavy rocks on one side of a field, move it to the other side. And then the next day, wake up and move it back and forth and back and forth. So what was the point of that kind of work?
See who is the strongest.
Okay, see who's strong, but what else? What else?
Demoralize people.
Demoralize you. It's pointless. Okay, it's like totally pointless. Do you know what I mean? It's like imagine, you're making this beautiful thing that you're knitting. So you knit it and then I pull the string and then you knit it and then I keep, you know what I mean? Keep destroying everything you're doing. It could make a person crazy. Nothing is more important for people than to have meaning and purpose in their life. Like, you know what I mean? To know that you came here for something. So the beauty that we have with Judaism is that you can put meaning and purpose in almost anything you do. right? Like anything you do can turn into a mitzvah. You take a shower, I'm taking a shower, Hashem, because you said I have to take care of my body. Everything can be uplifted every day, and we're always looking for a moment to pray, looking for a moment to learn some Torah, looking for a moment to help someone else every day. And helping yourself is also a mitzvah. So we really need to understand how we can put this in. So I'm going to end today with this really interesting story. I thought it was a beautiful story. So it's a great rabbi. His name was Reb Elchanan Wasserman. What was so amazing about him was a very average learner, but he really worked hard to become a great rabbi, and he was the top student of the Chafetz Chaim. So that's the Chafetz Chaim is the rabbi that revived this whole idea that we shouldn't gossip. All right, he really brought that up to the forefront. So this rabbi, he had a yeshiva in Baranovich, and he actually went to America to collect money to help, with the yeshiva. And really, the people in America begged him, don't go back because the Nazis are there. You're going to be destroyed. And he said, no, I'm going back. I'm not going to leave my boys by themselves. I'm going to go back. I'm like the captain of the ship. I'm not going down. I'm not going down without that. I'll go down with my ship. But, okay, so he had a good friend who he grew up with, who also went to the same schools, was a very smart boy also. But he left, Europe many years before, okay? He ended up becoming very wealthy, and he owned a factory in the garment industry, okay? So he comes to America, and someone tells him, you should go to that friend, because that friend, now is a very wealthy person. So maybe he'll be able to help you. But I do have to tell you, he's gone far off from the path, not so interested. I'm not sure if it will be good, it won't be good. So Rev Elchanan Wasserman says, I for sure want to go see him. It's not just about the money. I want to go see my friend. I don't care. I'm going, we'll see how it goes. So he goes to the friend, and the friend is very excited. Oh, you're here. I'm so excited, Rev Elchanan Wasserman. Let me show you my beautiful factory. Okay, he takes him all over, and there's materials and buttons and this and that. Okay, now they're sitting down, and he says to Rav Elchanan, what did you come here for? So he says, me? Oh, I came here because I would love for you to fix my coat. He goes, what? He goes, yeah, I came here. My coat is in terrible condition. If you wouldn't mind, could you sew some new buttons? Of course I could sew buttons. Okay. Sews the buttons, gives him back the coat. And so he says, okay, so new, joke over. Tell me why you really came. You didn't come all the way from Europe just to get your coat fixed. He goes, no, I came to see you and I wanted my buttons fixed. So now this man is thinking, come on, I know you came, you need some money, right, to help your boys in Europe. And he's thinking in his head, I'm not giving you any money until you tell me. Okay, so he says, no, so tell me why you really came. I'm telling you, I really appreciate seeing you after all these years. You fixed my coat. I'm so happy. I'm going. Okay, and he leaves. So 2 days later, this man shows up at the door by Rav Elchanan Wasserman. He says, I can't. It's making me crazy. I know you didn't come to me just for buttons. It's not possible that you would come all the way from Europe just to come and get buttons from me. It has to be for something else. So Rav Elchanan Wasserman says to him, do you remember when we were in school? He says, yeah. He says, remember when the rabbis told us that our souls came all the way from heaven, that they were next to God, and now they were sent down to earth, right into this body, and what a distance they traveled. So he says, do you think that your soul came all the way down to earth just so that you could make buttons? Do you get that story? I thought it was amazing. Okay. So there's so much more to life than just being on this treadmill to make money. Making money is very nice, but there's more. You didn't just come here to make buttons. And this man took, the lesson that he learned, and, he became a very philanthropic person, and you know what I mean, changed, it opens up his mind. So I thought that was such a beautiful story. So I just want to thank you. I'm so happy you guys were here. I really appreciate it. And I just wish everybody a sweet, good week. And hopefully we'll see each other next week. So I'm waving to everybody. Okay, you're all good? All good, everyone?
Gail, can I quickly share something?
Please, that's what this is
In-
about.
During Purim last year, I went
Mhm.
to Purim breakfast and we were all asked to take a poster of a hostage and keep it in our window,
Oh, wow.
which I did, and I've had all this time. And when they released the names of the hostages, the person who I have
Oh,
is going to be released. He's amongst the 30 that are left.
oh,
So
I'm
I'm
so
grateful.
happy.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful story, beautiful story. And I really believe like having him in your window, like every one of these things, you know,
Whatever.
was a little drop, you know what I mean? That made that little hole open to get them out. And Hashem Yisparach should just send them all out in good health as soon as possible. Okay, all the best. Okay, we should share in good news. Okay, thank you very much for coming.